waiting. We are done. We have received our advice, and I will now entertain a motion to exit and verify that only the items stated in the motion to enter executive session were discussed.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor of exiting executive session, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We are now back in regular session. And moving right on to the approval of minutes, I would entertain a motion to waive the reading and approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of approving the December 13th minutes, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Moving right on to public comment. We have two here. You're first, Mr. Stuckey. If you'd like to come forward and make your comments.
Okay, so thank you. I guess before I make some comments,
Please state your name and address just for the record.
Clyde Stuckey, 310 Law Street, and he was talking about the leaf situation. If you could, maybe tell me the benefits, is this reported to be quicker, time saving, that sort of thing, and that would be helpful to me to make,
Sure.
to respond, if you will.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. We have very little data from this year after the change, but in a few instances, we do see indications that picking up the bags is quicker, more efficient in that manner. The two problems we're trying to solve are costs and stormwater clogging. Those are the driving issues here, but Daniel, if you have any other information to address?
I think you covered
That's pretty much it.
it.
So, you know, we're what, 11 days in, 10 days in here. We've seen some good signs of the bags working, but we've got a lot more to learn. That's what we'll be doing this year. This year is an introductory year for the new setup, and we're going to monitor and see how it works and make adjustments as needed. Absolutely.
Okay, that's helpful, Casey, thank you. I was told that a time study was done on there were quite a few bags, I think about 50 bags, along Home Avenue. And there was a time study done on picking up those bags. And I think it took, 50 bags, and it was probably from here, from me to Bob and length, but picked up in roughly 4 minutes, and there was a smaller pile picked up down the street in about 5 minutes, and maybe that was extrapolated to think that if it was the same sort of pile, same size of pile, it would have taken 20 minutes.
Well, a data point is not a trend. We're aware of that, though. We did see some good indications, but again, we need to collect more information and make more observations, and that's exactly what we're planning to do.
There was more to the rest of that story, because it was seen that when those bags were picked up, they burst, and someone had to go back and rake up leaves from where they had left, and the leaves were back up on the sidewalk and the curb and the street. So somebody went back from the city and did some raking and got those leaves up. So that seemed to have taken 10 to 12 minutes. So if you figure all that in, what was suggested to me, that a minute was not saved. The other thing that stands out to me is when you're going to go to a new system, you need to look at the total impact, not just a stopwatch on you picking up this pile of leaves. Certainly, what was excluded was somebody going back and having to tidy up what was really clean, the sidewalks and the street with bags sitting there. So that was excluded, but that kind of brought you back to the same city time. But one of the things that troubles a lot of people is the time element that has been excluded in this whole process, and that is the city taxpayers. There's a lot of time, on the part of us as taxpaying citizens. You know, we have to now do that. Those 50 bags, I spoke to the lady, and it took her, after she raked the leaves up into a manageable pile, it took her 10 to 12 hours, just individually putting those leaves into a bag. And my simple way, thinking, that's not a productivity, enhancement. So when you look at the total process of the leaves are in the yard and you've added whatever time. Now, I don't know, if somebody could do them faster or slower, but regardless, putting leaves into a bag is difficult at best. However long it takes, it's additional time to the process.
Sure, and we understand that and appreciate you coming to speak today. I do want to go ahead and give our next speaker a chance, to make her comments, but thank you again for coming this evening. And that brings us to Mrs. Serrano. If you wouldn't mind, approaching the table, and state your name and address for the record, please, and keep your comments to 2 minutes or less if you can.
You have to let y'all know I'm hard of hearing, I'm straightening up, listening to what you're saying.
I'm trying to speak up then.
Please speak up for me. My name is Marla Serrano, I reside in Norfolk, Virginia, but I'm POA for my sister Mildred Reynolds, who resides at 222 Wilk Circle here in Hartsfield. So I'm speaking on behalf of Ms. Reynolds. Well, I sent you last year a 6-page letter, addressing the Angel Recognition Day, that I've been trying to get something done in Hartsfield, something official. She always get those proclamations from y'all every day from her birthday, saying that her August 29th, that would be Angel Day, and that week would be Angel Week. And what I've been asking for is something public and official for the city of Hartsfield to have an Angel Day. And it is not just so personal to her, it would benefit the entire city. So I've been trying to get that done, and I've, even with, Mayor Pendleton also, and nothing was ever done. So I said, oh, some new people in charge, I'll try again. So I sent you a 6-page letter, highlighting all the things that she's done for the city and the county. And you shook hands with my daughter-in-law at a meeting back when you first came in and said you was gonna respond to me. Over a year, I haven't heard anything. So what I did, I copied the letter and sent all of you a copy of it. So nobody still has addressed it to me. So that's part of the phone.
Did we not speak on the phone, or maybe I spoke to your daughter?
I haven't heard anything from you. No.
Well, in the conversation I had, what I said was, I think the idea sounds great. It's hard to argue with. I don't know if it's a function of the city though. I feel like there is another entity that may be more appropriate to administrate a program like that. I don't know if it's appropriate for the city to administrate a program like that, even though I think it's a very cool idea and such a great honor. But I feel like there would be another entity, another organization or nonprofit within the city that could administer that program more appropriately than the city. But I'd love to see it happen.
Well, is there any guidance that you can give me in terms of how to go about doing it? Because, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
She's 96 years old. She told me she would live to be 100, so I'm trying to go that trip with her.
Yeah.
And she's in, health is failing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm one of these people, give me my flowers where I live. I don't want nobody coming to my funeral with crocodile tears or nothing. Whatever you gotta say, do it now. So this is what I'm trying to do with her too. Give her the honor that she deserves. And like you say, if it's not in your realm to do it, you know, help guide me into how
Well,
something like that can be done.
I don't wanna suggest something you've already tried, and so in the interest of time, I'd like to follow up with you by phone, and we can
Okay.
talk about where you've been already,
Okay,
and see if we can figure out what the path forward may be.
okay.
But, while you're here, you had mentioned you had some, comments on street repair, probably on Wilk Circle.
Please, that's been over 3 years along too. That street is in horrible condition. I spoke with, Mr. Scarborough this morning, this afternoon, he did call me back. So I am gonna meet with him tomorrow, he's gonna look at the part in front of her house and see what can be done. But they've been promising that, empty promises now for about 3 years and it still look horrible. But the other end, where you make the circle and to turn around, the potholes are so big, a Big Mac truck can fall in, and that is how big the potholes are. And I showed the pictures to the ladies that navigated today. And, they told me that it belongs to the state. You nodded your head, I already talked to Mr. Scarborough, he says not. It's not theirs. Everybody keeps saying it's private. So if it's private property, y'all know who owns everything. Y'all got the record who owns everything. So if it's private property, you're supposed to know who owns it. If you can't contact those people, if they're dead and got, descendants, somebody can be responsible. And if anything is abandoned, to me, the city should take it over anyway and take care of it. That street looks horrible, y'all need to walk through there and see what it looks like.
Have you done a title search yet on the property?
On that particular,
Yeah.
what, on the street?
Mhm.
Well, I don't know how to do that, I don't know how to do no private. I feel like if I report it to y'all, that's what y'all can do. That's what y'all can do that.
Yeah.
And the girl told me in Navigator today, one of them, she went out, came back in, and she told the rest of them, oh yeah, it belongs to the state, something she done pulled up, and the state already, so they must be already know who the people is and got it. I talked to Mr. Scarborough since then, no, it don't belong to them.
That's my
So it really
understanding.
needs to be taken care of, this has been going too long, and like I said, and I'm gonna go with this, I feel like it's a race thing, it's the black neighborhood, nobody's trying to do anything with it. I don't think your street would look that way. That's what I'm saying, I'm saying what I feel. I see you pointing your hand at me.
Yeah, I know you.
You know me by now, I
Oh,
say what
yeah,
I
I
feel.
still got the letter, but I looked that same street up, and on the website, Saginaw DOT, it's a private road, private street.
Which one?
Wilkes Lane, I've been over it a couple times in the last year or so, and I've seen the crater, cause I questioned it too, I put in a work order to the state about a year ago, and they came back and says, you know.
Cause he said it's not me.
It's not
That's
state,
what he
it's a
said.
private street.
Council, so I'm pulling it up on the state's website, it has, it's Wilk Circle
Right.
is both labeled, it's two parts, State Road 882 and 883. We know Treasurer, you were gonna meet with them, you said this
I'll be
week?
here through Friday.
Okay, we just have dealt with this with another road, allow us to do some time, do some research on
Okay.
it. Let's do some, we'll do our due diligence on that, but we can certainly, do a title search on it if council is amenable, and we'll start that process.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms.
All right.
How are you doing today? I've also spoken with you about the Wilk Circle situation directly in front of your sister's house.
Right.
And I was told that there was no ability for signage to be put there, because it was the right of way, because I tried to, where, like the mail truck goes and maybe parked cars or whatever. But he said that they could not put any signs because that was the right of way. They fixed it up as best they could, and that was all I, yeah.
They might have told y'all this.
Look, no, I went, and
And
it,
it did something when it fell
probably,
apart.
they pushed the dirt up,
Oh.
but I mean, there was no asphalt added or anything like that. And as to the other end, it does show that is private property. So I'm in agreement with Councilman, Delane, and also with the city manager. We have had this problem with another road, and at that time, when we had the problem with the other road, I spoke about Wilk Circle. So I'm asking for due diligence, the same thing be applied. And as much help as we can be given, because the lady that actually lives at the end of that street, Miss Betty Fountain, she is not ambulatory at all.
Sure.
So if the ambulance has to go there, it could flip over possibly.
We'll get to the bottom of it.
It's bad craters, it's craters, it's not potholes.
Uh,
They're craters, it's not potholes.
well, getting back to her, don't get to,
Okay.
Mr. Scarborough, he's gonna meet with us tomorrow, so we'll have something that we can go, he said he's gonna come about 1 o'clock, and he's gonna, you know, look at everything with us. My husband, that's the kind of work he do at home. He spoke with Mr. Scarborough about what things can't be done, so they're gonna go over that tomorrow to see. So we all kinda got a little bit of something going for that part of it. But as far as like you say, in front of her door too, that's the part that Mr. Scarborough is gonna work on. But the other end, like you say, he said that's not heated, so.
And it should
He
take-
said he's gonna follow up and
Yes,
see
ma'am.
what,
Yeah.
okay.
We'll be talking to SCDOT.
But she, 96 years old, the city of Hartsfield, she's carried the city of Hartsfield on her back all these years. Anybody that knows her know, that's why, you see, I got my angel shirt on, because that's the way that everybody look at her, as the angel of Hartsfield. And so I feel like she deserves better to have her street looking better than what it does. And so hopefully, I'm gonna wait for y'all, like y'all say, to do something, and hopefully something will get done. I think she deserves that, and she deserves that angel day. So I'm gonna wait to hear from you. Okay.
Yeah, Shirley Margaret, good to see you. I didn't recognize you at first because you have.
Because I was right
Yeah.
You know what? I used to wear my blonde hair. You know
Yeah,
that.
right.
You know the blonde hair. One morning I woke up, I was all white. I said, oh my goodness. Man, I used to wear my cowboy boots and my hat, and nobody never saw my hair. So I got problem with my foot now, I can't get in my boots. So I said, well, can't wear my boots, I don't move my hat. I still wear my belt buckles though, and my hook but.
Thank you
But
again for coming to
anyway,
speak.
I
with us.
appreciate y'all listening to me, taking time, and like I told the other guy, I'm glad you let me talk and get stuff out of my system, so I appreciate y'all doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you
And I
very
look
much.
forward to y'all following up on it. Okay, thank you.
Casey, may I ask one question? I'm wondering, since this lease situation, first of all, I want to commend this lady. That was a wonderful, presentation.
Well,
And,
thank you very much.
I hope she will get the support that she's requested, because it's believable and it's needed. So you did a great job, and thank you for coming to do it.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Casey, the question I had on leaves was, since it's such a good thing for, or we think it's going to be such a good thing for the citizens to put the leaves in the bag, will the city be doing the same thing, using bags?
I'm not sure I can answer that.
You're referring to our streets and grounds crew, sir?
Pardon?
Our streets and grounds crew taking care of.
You're talking about city property?
City property?
Yes.
We.
The city picks up leaves all the time, you see them all around town, so I'm assuming they'll use the plastic bags as well.
Sir, we don't need to pick up the leaves and plastic bags, that's for conveyance from residences we still hold those by trailer or by our own facility, so we have different equipment than the citizen has, to take our leaves. Those bags doesn't.
So that's better for you guys, it would be better for us, for y'all to do the same thing that you have been doing. But what I would ask you, Casey and council, is I sent the video from Greenville, and, that's an innovative thing. I mean, we're taking a step backwards, but as you go forward and try to figure this thing out, I hope that you'll give consideration, because that's one guy and one piece of equipment making 600 stops a day.
And we appreciate your comments, and thank you for sending the information and the video from Greenville too. We're gonna, did you have
I
anything?
was just saying now, and Clyde, remember, you may remember, we've had a vacuum truck here as recently as 2016. We sold it in 2017. People would put their piles outside, and instead of just leaves, they put bricks, they put everything else in there. We started spending more repair money on the vacuum truck. It was down all the time, because that thing will suck up anything that goes in it. And there'd be bricks, there'd be all kinds of stuff in there. So we got rid of that truck, we sold it to another city. Now, one of the things we're gonna do this year, and you and I are talking almost every day, is look at every option there. We'll look at a vacuum truck again. We're gonna look, I handed out tonight to council what one of our constituents had passed on to me about an air burner that just, where you condense everything down into small portions before you take it somewhere else. All that's on the table. And I asked you about the lady who had the 50 bags out there, you know, did she wait all year to rake her leaves? Was that one raking or what? And you said you didn't know, and I don't know. It was a lot of leaves at one time, you know. And I didn't know anything about the going back. I passed along to you what the city manager had shared with us, which was the best of his knowledge on this, of what you just said about going back and bags bursting. A, did she put too much in the bags, or were the bags compromised just because they weren't good bags? I don't know. But that was news on that too. But everything is being looked at. It is, the mayor called it an introductory year. We put moratoriums there. We're still gonna pick up loose things for the next couple of months. We're trying to find out, as I said to you, where the pain points are. But what we had is unsustainable. We simply are picking up twice as much refuge as we are household garbage. We made 540 trips to the landfill this year. And time is a big issue that the tonnage is the same, but if we can pick it up a quarter or any time less than what we're doing, that's at least a step, but it's not a long-term solution. We're trying to find a long-term solution. And most people, I think we've spoken now with over 1,000 of our people, there's 3,000 some odd households in the city. And most people have had questions, but most have been accepting of it, or at least going, okay, it's new. You know, the old adage is there's two things people don't like, change and the way things are. You know, it's just, there's a lot of truth in that. You know, nobody likes change. This is change. All we're saying is work with us on this. It is not perfect, but it had to change what we were doing there. It's not sustainable. It's just not. With me?
Back on the question, I asked the guy from Greenville about bricks and whatever else. He said it's a pretty significant fine. He said, we don't have that problem.
You're lucky. You're lucky, because I'm gonna tell you something. I see it now when I drive through around Hartsfield, I see the leaves pile up, guess what I see hanging out? 2x4s over rotten trees. So people doing the same thing. Now you mentioned that they went back, picked up the leaves from the first bag.
That's what
I'm
I
not
was.
trying to be mean. If a city employee did that, commend them. But they wouldn't do that in South
No,
Hartsfield. You said it was a city employee, right?
I said I was told that a city
Right.
employee went by. I didn't say, I hadn't talked to,
Right.
the city.
No, I'm saying, if the
I'm
city
not-
employee did that, I commend them. I'm not gonna argue with you.
We didn't see anybody back
Right
there.
now.
We had our crews pick up, the same crew that picks up on home, pick up the pile of leaves, and went about their job, and went to the next pile, and there's the next pile. They don't have time to go back to pick up and rake leaves like that. If you did see the pictures from it, it does look cleaner. But then also there's piles left from the other pile that's loose, which is not as clean. So, I mean, I think that, again, as Mr. McGee said, this is an introductory year, let's try it, see how it goes.
I wanna clarify something. A city employee did not say that. That's not what I said. I was told.
Yeah,
That
I
was-
agree with
that
that.
was
I'm not
saying-
gonna argue with
What
that.
we're clarifying is that we did
Yeah.
not send somebody back out to
No.
falsify the data.
Whether we send someone back or not, if the city employee did it or not, and like I said, I commend them for doing it. But I have a report for people in South Hartford, when they're doing the pickup, whatever comes up, that would, the rest stays. So, you know, we only got X amount of people in grounds or sanitation. So if they do that, I give them credit for it. Appreciate it.
Hey, those guys do a wonderful job because I buy lunches for those guys all the time.
Yeah, like I said, we really need to move on the agenda. We've got a lot of business to take care of tonight. Thank you again.
I appreciate it.
Respect to you, sir.
Yes.
I just wish there was more time thought about the the citizens having to do all this extra work.
I understand. We're gonna go ahead and move on with the meeting. Thank you very much.
Can I say one more thing, and it's gonna be brief, concerning the same little sections you're talking about?
This guy.
Now, I'm gonna wait and let you do what you say, but before I was told that nobody was taking the responsibility for it, the city or the state, because whoever take it got to maintain it, so I hope that's not the mentality y'all take on it this time.
I
And go
understand.
ahead and find
And
who's got it and take care of it.
Again, as a point of order, we need to move on with the meeting. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay.
On to manager update, Mr. Manager, what do you have for us? It's all relates to this.
Few things, so just a couple of housekeeping items. Hometown listed action day is gonna be, February 7th, I believe you guys have already registered. I'm gonna be at an advanced institute, so Karen Calder, actually, the assistant, will accompany you, she'll have the credit card, so it'll be great. But if you guys go to that, please, that's a great, if you can go, please go. Sharon, if you haven't done it already, please contact her about, deciding that. Byron Foundation is gonna have their birthday, so we'll have, Friday, January 27th, from 9 to 11 a.m. It's Byron's birthday, so come by and say hi, we're very excited.
And if I would add, Sharon had the idea that if we can all get there that morning, we can actually have a group photo taken, which doesn't exist. That would be really good.
They are doing free headshots as part of the birthday.
It's 27.
January, Friday, 27th.
And they'll have cookies.
Let's see, there's gonna be a legislative delegation dinner with Darlington County Joint Municipal Council, City Council Board of Education, Monday, January 30th, and the Board of Education is hosting, so it's a continuation of those dinners that we've had. So that, I believe, the last one I think was great, I think everyone had very positive comments about it, of course, we hosted, so of course. But this year it's gonna be the Board of Education, so please come if you can't, get to Sharon again, or Andrew about, RSVP for that, January 30th, Monday.
Did you receive it somewhere from us?
I believe it's to be determined. So, again, we're not hosting it, so I don't have all the answers from them, so.
They usually start at 6, but where they're gonna hold it, we don't know yet.
We'll, as soon as we have information, we'll get it out to you.
Moving around from different locations.
Yeah, I think these are great.
They usually start at 6.
Our started at 6, yeah. It also is that time of year again, so we're starting up our budget prep. Staff are in the meeting, we're getting the audit, which should be next back to you in February. is that
That's right.
And then we're starting our budget prep meetings for next fiscal year, June or July 1. But strategic planning session, I wanna continue doing those annually as we do it, so we're looking at doing another one. Tentatively, I have July 31st, or January 31st, excuse me, unless you wanna do it in July. But January 31st, 9 to 2. We were looking at February 7th, but Hometown Legislative Action Day, so we're looking at that date. We're gonna build off of what we did last year. So last year we did 9 to 2. It was very, I think, a good meeting, very, we stayed on point the whole time, so I think that's a good date to shoot for, so January 31st. But again, all these will be coming out to you guys as we go forward for calendar invites. If you want, we can go ahead and do, we did have yard debris discussion on here, if you wanna get into some of the more conversations. Again, Bobby brought some points, and we've been redoing some research on what options are available. The main thing I think we're getting at maybe is going back to the leaf back. I'm familiar with them in different cities we've worked on. They do have a tendency to break down if there is issues with it. They will suck up a lot. And I mean, I agree that there's ability to put in fines and placements. It's just a manpower issue of having to enforce those codes issues. Doesn't mean it's impossible. But one option that I do like is a little bit more manpower, but it actually has a rear attachment, and we're going over the ideas. A rear attachment has a man actually manning the leaf back so you can see what they're sucking up as opposed to an arm. All that's still in the air. I think it's a good idea to look at it for next leaf season, potentially in the budget conversation, see if it can flush out the budget conversation or include it in the next year's budget. But Bobby, if you want to get into some of the burning ideas, or if we can move on to something else, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, no, I think that is good. One of the ideas, this was brought up by a constituent, put that thing that's called air burners, but these are self-contained furnaces. Let's just say we have an opportunity to purchase one of those, or we put it on our property, maybe out where environmental services is, and we take leaves there, and it condenses things down, so that ultimately when you go to the landfill, instead of taking a truckload full, you're taking just much less full. It was just one way that cities have addressed in a very clean, environmentally way to attract things. They come in all sizes, all shapes, all money, price points on there. But as we explore options, part of our due diligence is to look at as many options as we possibly can and go, is it a vacuum truck? Is it something like a furnace? Is it a combination? Is there something better? Composting is good, composting is bad sometimes. So, let's be open with it, and the budget session is a perfect time to think about some of those things, because all of it takes money. But being efficient with it and getting more input. We also talked about doing education with the citizens. We agree that, the way this came out just kind of happened, and there it was when we got a new procedure. When they'll roll out to it, to talk to people and say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and these are the benefits to it. we still wanna do that, we can use our water bills, we can use our social media, we can use our website to just do education there and continue to answer questions while we go through and receive feedback from citizens of the pain points or whatever the issues are, and let it be a give and take. It doesn't all need to come from here, and it can all come from there, but together, we can figure out what works, and so I think that's our charge and our challenge over the next few months is to just be good listeners, also be good on the part of it where we come up and go, Mr. Manager, these are options, bring us options. You've been in different cities, you've seen things that work, we all see things that work when we go to different cities, like Mr. Stuckey talked about going to Greenville or wherever it is. Somebody's got, you know, the thing that will work well for this city, for the manpower and the money that we have, and we just need to figure it out.
It's pretty cool contraptions, that's for sure.
It is pretty good.
Yeah.
Mr. Allen, Norwood is the one who passed it on to me and everything, he had seen those, and I saw, yeah, he lives on college, and he shared that with me, so I'll share that with y'all, to just say, look at it. Nothing I'd ever heard of, I didn't know anything about it.
Appreciate it. We good to go, or did you have anything else?
Well, I think we'll continue on the process, and I think during the budget conversation, it's a good time, an excellent time to review and research all these things. And by that time, again, so as Bobby alluded to, we have 630 carts in circulation, we have another 200 requested, so almost 800 people, households, have requested it. We've talked to another few hundred just in questions, and people are requesting bags, and I got pictures today from College Avenue, roll carts and bags, and it looked clean, and so we're gonna be running again more tests to see how much impact. Again, we have, technology on cars that measures the idle time, so we can tell how long these cars are stopping and starting. So this is a good exercise, again, I think it's the right decision, we're going forward, let's see how it does it, if we can improve it, we want to improve it.
That's always the case.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I have one more thing there.
Oh, okay.
So the last time I do wanna bring up, so the Hartsville Public Development Corporation, again, we put that out for bid, this is the 10 acres over by the Wild Card.
Yeah, I probably need to introduce myself.
If you like to, I'll go ahead and publicly skip it.
Yeah, because of any potential conflicts of interest, given that this property surrounds Wildhorse, I'll step out, if somebody would knock and let me back in. Or just continue with the meeting.
We'll take a vote on that.
Okay. I'll make it official, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if you would.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. I have respect for the mayor. Again, he has a business meeting right next to it. So, again, this was the property next to the Wild Park. It's a 10-acre development that we've been looking at for the last, let's say, 5 years or so at this point. We had developed a plan, with the Hartsville Public Development Corporation, did put out a bid, for many different reasons. Not just, the market, of course, is an issue, right now, it is tough to do. The concept might not have been to some people's liking, but we did not get any, bids or requests for letters of interest. We did speak to 13 different groups. One I was very, pleased with, I worked with them in Charleston, but overall, we're not able to get anything, again, for a variety of reasons. We're still getting feedback about what the reasons were. But at this point, we need to make a decision. And so, again, the property is owned by the Hartsville Public Development Corporation, which is the financial arm of the city. City council, though, holds the purse strings of this thing. They're the ones paying the interest unless the taxpayers are. It is important, I think, to have a solid plan moving forward of what our next steps are. What I'm gonna be discussing tonight is a plan forward that involves continuing to have the HPDC exist. Because we had discussed whether or not the city should just go ahead and pay the note that's remaining from the loaner, the lending agency that will work with us. If we did that, then the city would acquire all the property back. That would drain the general fund or reserves, probably a little too much that we'd be comfortable with. And speaking to our attorney, it makes sense for us to try and work with the lender to extend out the loan. The issue with that is the current market. The interest rate has skyrocketed. We went from paying $7,000 this past year a quarter to last quarter we paid $23,000. The quarter before that, we paid $19,000. So already in 2 quarters, we paid more than what we paid the last 2 years in total, each year individually. And so we're going from having to budget only $30,000 in interest payments to close to $100,000 in interest. And that is just money that we're giving up. So the interest, and we've already started some conversations with the lender. They are amenable to discussing it at least, doing maybe a fixed interest extension, so we actually fix the rate going forward for a period of time to be determined. We have to talk about what that would be. Allowing us time to regroup on the property, discuss what our options are for it, then get it sold. And that might mean sitting on it for a year or so while the market stabilizes. It could also mean allowing us to develop another plan, because I think if you can't keep doing the same one over and over again. I think it's a good idea to go ahead and shelve that plan for now, see if we can adopt any instances after the fact, once we have some ideas with it, because there are some good elements of that plan, but move forward with a new plan. Move forward with a new idea of what we can do to best serve that area. Like we just did with the design review, we just had that wonderful design by Randy. Let's look to the left and right of the property, see what makes sense for the area. Let's design it intentionally, or not design it, let's plan it intentionally. But then really, you have to let it go. You have to let the ultimate people have control of it when they move by. So I think that we have some options. I just want to get some feedback from you guys if you want to do that. Council does have some options, what they can do as far as releasing resolutions and what the recommendations are to HPDC. But HPDC ultimately will have to do it, and move forward with any type of plans and actions. All right, any questions?
So we would need to formalize something at our next meeting, then we go to HPDC.
So what I would suggest is to formalize a resolution with clear indications of what the city council wants the HPDC to do. And to ensure that, the HPDC is operating in the same lock and step with what city council wants. Because at this point, we need to all be on the same page about what the development can and should be. And if council is not confident in the Hartsville Public Development Corporation to do what council wants, you need to just make sure you have the things in place to ensure that happens. And again, Hartsville Public Development Corporation has a multi-member board, it has members from Byerly, one at large, and 3 council representatives, 2 council members and 1, but you need to make sure that they're operating the same lock and step that you guys want. So we could memorialize something in February, then HPDC can then, what I would say is that we need to start negotiating with the lender now, and begin to get ideas of what we can and can't do, what they're willing to accept, because their board has to accept those changes as well. And they could do they have a meeting again in February, so this could all kind of line up. We'll just have a council meeting, then HPDC, and then go forward with the board, and then meet back with HPDC and memorialize it and go forward.
Do you foresee during the planning session that you're planning in January, having that as an agenda
Yes,
item?
I would go ahead and start coming up with ideas for it. Again, you could look at what we've already done. We have spent, there are other plans that are part of this process that we have. You could start new. It is more valuable as a whole piece. So to piecemeal off of that this time might not be the best option, but still you're looking at commercial markets. And if I can talk to realtors in this town, you can talk to commercial realtors about what is the best avenue going forward. And I would recommend city council and HPDC start conversing with, commercial realtors, citizen involvement, council involvement, everyone have a piece, because this is a critical piece for our city. And it's gonna impact a lot of people, so bringing people to the table, essentially, I'm suggesting starting over.
Well, and I'll reiterate that, the clock is ticking, we've got the June 30th, or really many months before that to figure this out. But, it does need to be, a full discussion with everyone as much as we can. And, I think we can come forward with a plan. But
I think
that
too-
sense of urgency is there for me.
Yes, and there's also, we have to remember too, that we did this at the Lincoln County Business Park, right? So when we consider the development of these properties, it's absolutely attached to that, and there will have an expiration on that as well.
Yeah.
To where we receive those additional funds. So we do feel the urgency as well, but everyone does need to be on the same accord, and we consider what are on those properties, though, that's absolutely.
Is there a sunset on the opportunity zone also?
So that's my next option. So we have two things sunsetting, the opportunity zone, which sunsets, I believe, in 2026 or thereafter. And then the multi-county business park sunsets in 2028. And so, all those are, missed opportunities for this development. Not a deal breaker by any stretch of the means. The multi-county business park is still generating revenue at this point because it does include some of the surrounding area. The main issue is for any investor, they have missed the window for the opportunity zone, the best benefits from it, because when the opportunity zone is put in place, the very first, year or so is the best time to invest because you reap the full benefits of opportunity zone, and then it starts to tear down in, value for an operator. There still is value for anyone to invest currently until the sunset of it. But we have to realize that the market is gonna dictate what the market will dictate what it can do. And that's why we need to engage, and I don't wanna engage too much because again, this is spending money. And I don't want to, again, go through this whole process again of starting over and spending again on consultants and whatnot, but we do need resources. We need to know what the commercial market, we're not realtors, we need to understand selling properties and how to develop commercial properties, in realistic terms. So we can do that to an extent, and I think, you know, we do have a good idea, just in terms of general zoning and planning zoning, that's our forte, so we can do that side of it. But when you get into actually selling the properties, because I don't wanna get in there and start selling up properties for a value that doesn't make sense, for a value that's too little or too high, because that's gonna throw off people anyway.
Yes, I'm in agreement as to the urgency of getting this project, restarted, do what we need to do new, not, the way it was done last time, because misinformation and no information, and a completely different direction. And I don't wanna insult anyone, but I also don't feel that council, we can't do things in that manner. We've had several, you know, this is the taxpayers' dollars. So if council can't regulate taxpayers' dollars, then we're not good stewards. So everything has to be above board, and it has to be truthful and factual and honest. And if it cannot be done, don't let somebody draw the picture that it can be done. Because there are other places and areas in the city that need the same type of redevelopment, infill, and everything else. So I suggest that we go ahead and do what we need to do with this property, drop the name, and start where we need to start. Maybe not start over, but where we need to start, and not continue to pour money into that piece of property.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Daniel, of the 13 groups that initially expressed interest, did you feel like of the 13 there was any serious?
Yes, we had some who actually started trying to work with some local developers, but the local developers were not interested.
If that's the case, then why don't we see why the trail cooled and see what we can do
Yes, yeah.
to pour gas back on that fire to maybe
The
show a little bit of interest.
two firm instances I have of why the gap did cool was A, the market, which is a big indicator. I mean, stuff is expensive right now, although other projects are still moving forward, but there are instances where projects have failed because there's no thing. And then the other one is they weren't buying what we were selling. So the overall design was not, appealing to them, because again, we did do a bold, you know, the HPDC presented a very, I think it presented a very, aggressive and very, beautiful project, but may not have fit into the area of the project. Again, that's my opinion, but I think that when overall we just try to push that design onto another entity who's going to have to spend money, that was a difficult hurdle for them to accomplish. So the feedback I got was that the product that we were pushing, that HPDC had pushed forward, was not, there was no appetite for it. Not, maybe parts of it, but not the whole thing. And so that's what was the reason for a lot of them to back out, was they just didn't have the willingness to gauge with that level of project potential.
Well, I initially envisioned, you know, some just neat occupancies down on Short Street. But I guess if someone's gonna jump in and spend that kind of money,
Yeah.
they naturally gonna want a little, they wanna do what they wanna do with their money, so
Yeah.
I guess we've got to be a little more flexible and just have
I
a
would-
trust in their judgment that they're not gonna come in and put
Sure.
something that.
I think that, you know, with any other design, so for city-owned projects, and there's many examples of, you know, what we're trying to do is not new. It's been done by many cities. West Columbia just had a very successful project where they own the land and they released a loose vision of what the project should be, and they requested people to come back and show me, this is our idea, but this is not set in stone. Show us what you want, show us what you can provide to us, and then we will partner with you, because a lot of what we're talking about is a P3 project, private-public partnership. And we have, you know, the work that we put into the project, and then also the Wilkes County Business Park, we have revenue sources that can assist with, you know, infrastructure and whatnot. So what we're trying to do, there's already a formula written on how to do this. I believe that the first attempt was outside of that formula. It was a bold move, there's no question with that. But going forward, we should probably stick to something, why reinvent the wheel. And again, when you are asking someone to invest that level of money, you can't hold the reins that tightly, because then you just scare them away.
The opposite of that is that I have a playbook from Hamlin Ferry. They were so, and this is a development over in North Augusta, right across the river and everything. They were so good about getting the buy-in up front from all of the people that were gonna be involved there. They had the city, they had the developers, they talked to a lot of people. And that project, when you look at that playbook, it is beautiful. The detail to which they said, this is what we want, is extraordinary. I'm happy to share that with any of you. It's amazing. I think that the danger, bad things happen when you try to move real quickly. So there is urgency, but there is not the need to be reckless. I know that's a 6-month thing. We have a lender that's coming up there. If I were the lender and I were being asked to extend, I would want to know what are you going to do differently? Why would I grant you an extension if you're going to keep doing the same thing? HPDC was set up very purposefully outside of council, because at that time HPDC was the gathering ideas, bring in the ideas, bring in the expertise of what could be on that property over there. The design that was put out and drawn by Tom Lowe was a grand design. Absolutely. And in the request for information we sent out, we just went, this is what we're looking at, but tell us if you want to see something different on that. You know, if you like some of it, you like all of it. So what I would do is go back to those 13 people, almost like an exit interview, and say, you know, you didn't feel the need to even put in a proposal to us, help us out and understand why. And we get all those data points. But you go back to HPDC, and I think, Daniel, you're on the track on that. They need to come back with something different, but it's not just HPDC that do it. They need to go back and start that process, get the buy-in from people, bring our local developers in here, bring other people, everybody who would be a stakeholder in this thing, and go, okay, there's 10.5 acres sitting there that's a natural extension of your downtown. Let's get a plan that makes sense on that. There's a lot of moving right now for building these houses where they're rentals and everything. I watched an episode come up in Somerville, in Surfside, the one that's down below where we are there. It's sprung up and they're occupied immediately, gives people an opportunity to get into a home. So there's a lot of different things can be done. There are still people here that are interested in that property. There are, and done in the right way, if they have enough ammunition, if they're brought to the table so that other people are backing them, so they can then go to the bank and say, well, I've got this group that's gonna put in this, and this maybe group over here to do this. It gives them the strength to do some things, because whatever happens on that first corner over there is gonna set the tone for everything else that happens on it. So you need to be absolutely dead on right with whatever hits right there across from him.
And I think
It's
these
gonna
are,
set the tone for the whole thing.
and I appreciate everybody's comments, I think these are things that we can explore at our
And
planning
it's not
session.
to be done by February, that is too rushed, that we're just
I
told.
think we need to talk about it in January.
Start talking.
Oh, and let me clarify,
We do an ordinance, a resolution in February, and HPDC being in lockstep with the city. See, I think that's the wrong mindset on that. Let them come up with it. HPDC was charged with coming up with this. Council then at the end of the day was to give final approval on it. But we said to HPDC, this is your bag. So I'm glad to hear you say we're not gonna just dissolve that, because I think that is the wrong thing to do.
well, to clarify, not to decide on the design by February.
No,
The request is to have something to say to the lender by February, because we need to, we need to get this.
You won't have a new plan to go back to, it's not realistic.
No, my new plan is to say that we are developing a new plan, because right now the issue we have is that the lender has expressed concern that if we continue on how we're doing things, so the plan you just laid out is not satisfying the lender. So to go with the same plan of having HPDC come back with something, they want the city to be in control. And that's how they envision how we can move forward with having an extension, because again, we're not taking this lightly with extension. Extension is a request for city council to obligate potentially another $120,000 in taxpayer dollars on already a $3.3 million project. So it's not something that we take lightly going after an extension. So that's where the urgency comes in. We've had a project for 5 years that the Hartsville Public Development Corporation has been at the helm of. And so at this point, at 4.5 years later.
Yeah, but it got taken off the track the last 6 months. It was not, what we kind of were working toward. It got taken off the tracks.
I would say the tracks were taken off 2 years ago, before it was dead.
I would say the tracks were taken off in the beginning, because I had to be explained that in the meeting. So let's not discuss this right now, we need to move on.
Okay, okay, and I guess the chair's prerogative, we're moving on.
That's fine.
All right, anything else, from
No,
the
that's all my major update.
Okay, Madam Clerk, if you could, chair, please, and the gavel back.
Got a couple of special guests from the governor's school that just came to see what's going on. Mayors over there.
Have a seat.
Alrighty. Okay, now we're at consent agenda, okay, thank you for taking care of business for me. Appreciate your patience. Consent agenda, receives information only, I want to say to all the departments, thank you for all the hard work you do in preparing those reports for us, it's very helpful. Moving on to unfinished business. Mr. Manager, if you wouldn't mind publishing item 6.
Okay, so that's a public hearing and final reading of ordinance 4446, an ordinance to amend appendix A zoning article 6A cluster housing development section 7, minimum space between principal buildings.
Okay, and, before discussion, I'll hear a motion to, we do the public hearing first, okay. I will open up the floor for a public hearing. If you have any comments on ordinance, 4446, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. Nobody? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and thank you for that. Now, I will entertain a motion, to approve the final reading of ordinance 4446.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve, ordinance 4446.
Have a motion, do I have a second? All right, is there any discussion on this?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of cluster housing, going from 20 down to 10 feet. I mean, separation between the two major principal, property buildings.
So, I'm familiar with these, again, they're coming up all at Charleston or that area, and it's just, they're tighter houses together, a lot of times they'll have fences separated too. It's a smaller side yard between the two.
Right.
The cluster housing, again, this is not replacing all single-family detached dwellings in Hartsville, this is adding another higher density layer, which is something I think is very progressive for us to start thinking of when we start getting into different types of development. Although, as Mayor and I were having a conversation, it may not be everyone's cup of tea to live as close to a neighbor, but for some people, that is right up their alley.
Yeah, you know, see, my experience with cluster housing kind of goes around the world a little bit. So, to me, Americans, cluster housing is a whole different animal,
Sure.
you know, so.
We're
I mean, that's what they wanna do, that's fine, but I don't get it.
That's, they're doing this in Florence right now.
Are these detached homes or?
These are detached, so, and there is a cluster housing development that has attached homes, more like townhomes that have shared walls.
Yeah,
Those still require higher space density from the principal structures. What we're only discussing is changing the detached, single-family homes, and these are 700 to 1,100 square foot homes, these are smaller patio homes. It's for a specific type of client.
okay.
And the client that we want to move to Hartsville, we want to have.
All clients will love those.
Yeah.
And I would say in this location where they are is, I think key to that as well,
Sure.
being by the,
This is right next to an elementary school,
Yeah,
this is right next to a
school,
hospital,
yeah.
there's a lot of growth going on, this is a good test scope for it.
it gives, another ability for us to be able to retain, or gather and retain people.
And I believe as you look at it from, these are closer to the road, so they're a little closer up. You know, as you step back into the neighborhood, because this is potentially part of the three-phase development going home, there's opportunities to do bigger yards, bigger setbacks later on in development as you step back away from the road. Again, it's another option at our disposal. It does not mean that we have to do it every time.
Anything else? All right, all those in favor of approving the final reading of ordinance 4446, please indicate so by saying aye. Any opposed? Nay. Well, the ayes still have it, thank you though. Ordinance 4446 has, passed its final reading. On to new business, resolution 01-2301. Mr. Manager, would you mind publishing the resolution?
Yes, sir, it's approval of the creation of the Main Street Hartsville MSH Advisory Board and approval of boundaries of the Main Street Hartsville District.
So these are recommendations from Main Street, South Carolina.
And this is to create the board, we will discuss members in the executive session.
Okay. So yes, this is to create the board only, to, have a motion to approve resolution.
So moved.
And the boundaries, if you want to discuss the boundaries as well. It's all one motion.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry,
Apologies for speaking up.
I abbreviated, but it's approval of the advisory board and the approval of the adjusted boundaries for the district. Does your motion stand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion is
And got a second, all right. We have motion and second, we have any discussion on this resolution? Any questions? The, map is pretty clear. I think it cleans it up pretty good, okay. Well, hearing none, I'll have a vote. All those in favor of approving 01-2301, indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Resolution 01-2301 is approved. Moving on to 01-2302, Mr. Manager, if you would publish the resolution.
It's, resolution 101-2302, approval for Hartsville Police Department, HPD, to enter into a memorandum of understanding, MOU, with South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, and SLED, for access to automatic license plate reader system.
An annual renewal.
Yes, sir.
Do I have a motion, to approve resolution 01-2302?
Mr. Mayor, second.
I have a motion and a second, any discussion on this?
a little housekeeping thing that's on a piece of paper there that came from SLED, it's spelled enforcement.
Okay.
SLED.
We need to enforce our spelling standards.
Right.
Yeah.
Corporate transaction, look that up, based on collective action responsibility.
Any other discussion on this? well, I will hear a vote on the approval of resolution 012302.
So moved. Approved.
We need a vote.
All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, resolution 012302, is approved. Moving on to number 9, resolution 012303. Mr. Manager, please vote.
Yes, sir, it's approved for Hartsville Police Department to enter into a mutual aid agreement with Chesterfield County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, another annual renewal, I believe.
Sheriff.
Yeah. Do I have a motion, to approve resolution 012302?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there, did I say 0203? I'm sorry. 012303. Is there any discussion on this one? Questions? All right, hearing none, we'll have a vote. All those in favor of approving resolution 012303, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and resolution 012303 is approved. Moving right along to item number 10, resolution 012304. Mr. Manager, if you would publish the resolution.
Yes, sir, it's approval to change the time of the Tuesday, February 14th, 2023 regular city council meeting.
All right, do I have a motion to approve resolution 012304?
Changing the time to what? 10 o'clock.
Yes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
It's on Valentine's Day, so I'm just wondering,
It's already can go to dinner.
The mayor has an observation, so.
Nice table right
What's happening is that the redistricting staff from the state, needs to come speak to council through a Zoom call, and they can only do their business hours. That is their budget.
Yeah.
So they are requested that we do a daytime meeting, and we just so happen to have a meeting on February 14th, and aside from spending Valentine's Day with all you fine people, at night, we decided to do it during the day at 10, and then you guys are free to do what you want.
So it's just to accommodate, the presenters.
We can have 2 meetings if you like.
Don't tempt me. So, any questions on that?
You said that's via Zoom?
They're gonna come join us by.
But they're gonna show the maps, right?
They will show us the new maps, yes, sir.
And, we will not have to do approval then, we can do approval with the following.
For the redistricting,
Yes.
that is going to be at the next meeting, I believe. We're
March
gonna
meeting?
discuss it, yes.
Okay.
We have been presented with a preliminary map to show, as far as we can tell, just, there's minor changes, although there are some shifting of properties, but nothing, it's all in the single digits, not like the 2010 one, which I think had in the hundreds of shifting, so.
It would be good if we had the access to that before they speak.
As soon as we are able to release it, we will release it to you, Mr. Councilman. It is top secret.
Anything else on this resolution? Okay, all those in favor of approving resolution 012304, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, resolution 012304 is approved. And our last order of new business, resolution 012305. Mr. Manager, if you would publish the resolution.
Yes, sir, it's the approval of the memorandum of understanding, MOU, agreement with Coker University for joint grant applications to the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, for historic structure preservation projects.
All right, we have, some representatives from Coker here for questions, but, first we entertain a motion to approve resolution 012305. Motion and a second. All right, I think it's great, investing in the, preservation of Davidson Hall. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to be a part of it, but is there any, they are here if you have any questions.
I don't have a question for them, Mr. Mayor, but all council, look down and see if I'm just getting context wrong. Look at the, resolution itself, and look down to the paragraph that's the fourth, whereas the proposed MOU as executed when needed will allow the city to ensure, and that's the word I'm hanging up on, preservation. How can we ensure that? Should it be accommodate, or am I missing context on that? How will our participation ensure, other than we're gonna submit the grant information, we're gonna be involved with it, but they are going to be doing all the things to it? And I'm just getting caught up on the word, will allow the city to ensure preservation of the National Historic Sites. Does it, really do that with us having enumeration before we allow the city to accommodate preservation.
I don't know,
Is there a better word?
we're certified local government, which, and maybe
We're the ones that it's gotta come through us.
right, and, you know, we're passed through, and maybe the COCA reps can help us out on this, but, these are National Register, properties, applying for a grant with a pass-through, and, we're responsible for all the accounting and things like that. Whether in any of the laws or ordinances, whether that language is used or not, or it's just something that we came up with. I think, maybe Terry pulled a former,
She did.
memorandum.
We looked to the past to see what other ones have sure what probably we did before. Again, as the certified, we are the ultimate responsible party when it comes to, so insurer is, it might not be the most 100% for it, but I think it is appropriate in this context.
When I read it, from that standpoint, the way that I said it, is that we would ensure, we would be working with planning and zoning if it was something of preservation came up that would come through any of our departments. To be able to work with them, even I would think through natural utilities as a city function.
As ultimate
I'm
citizens,
fine
our
with that.
responsibility ensuring is
Correct.
appropriate.
And being a certified local government, is there a responsibility on our part for preservation? That's one of the reasons we
Through
went
this,
for that certification,
through this
so we can
memorandum, we are.
get it for people, institutions like COCA.
I think we have it, if you're talking about generally, the city, I believe, does have multiple responsibility for storage, which is why we have gone after other ones, but in this case, with this memorandum, we are the ones who are insuring, so I think that we have ultimate responsibility in this case.
So we're on the hook with the federal government,
Yes,
so we need to ensure it's done
Yeah.
correct.
that's, we're partnering with them, so we do.
And that's exactly what I was wondering, with the word insured, does that put us in the, when there's a deal gets pointed to us, and was that really the intent? I don't think Coker intended.
No, I don't think they're telling, but
Let's
that's
just
how the
speak for
program,
that.
I believe it's how the program has to go, but again, this is what we did in the past. So,
That's, and that's why, as Councilmember Andrews mentioned, we went for and became a certified local government, because there's certain grants that, in this situation, they would not even be able to apply for this grant without us ensuring that we're going to get a pass-through for this.
That's right, it's a pass-through type
Yeah,
situation,
yeah.
they're required to have it, they can apply. And Dan, if you wanna add, please.
No, and absolutely, I think it's you empowering us to go for this grant or co-signing it. We're agreeing to be proper documentation, keep proper financials, be available for audit through the city should anything come up. And anytime that you wanna see what we're doing, you have the right to come and inspect our books, come and inspect our, plans, the entire grant process, and we're reporting to you, and you're reporting to the federal government.
we're co-signing on a car together.
Correct.
Basically.
You're our other half, yeah.
Would there be public?
Need a nail count there.
But I know where Dan is, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we know where they are.
Would there be benchmarks where they would inform council as to, you know, how the process is going?
Yeah, I believe so, and, we will keep you guys abreast of this one. This is, I think this is a new, I mean, not new, but.
It's laid out well.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah,
well
this is
laid out.
It should all be in.
Great opportunity for the city and great opportunity for university, and it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity.
I agree.
And there may be.
That's it.
Right, and as they continue to do this program, there might be, there will be.
There will be
Yes,
more.
there will be additional reviews,
There
so,
will be.
there are many insurers will have.
We have 7 historic properties that qualify, and we're gonna triage our way through them, right?
Absolutely.
So this will cover all future,
Right.
okay, that's good.
Okay.
So you won't have to sit through
We
public
believe
council
so.
meetings.
Hey, you can come back if you want. Well, that's a good point though, on the verbiage there. Is there any other, questions or comments about this resolution before we move on? All right, hearing no more comments, we'll have a vote. All those in favor of approving resolution 01-2305, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Resolution 01-2305 is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, and, do we have any calendar information or anything before we move to executive session? Okay, well, I
Those
will,
calendars in your agenda.
I will, hear a motion to enter executive session pursuant to SC Code for section 3470A15 for discussion of matters relating to a potential economic development opportunity at the industrial park and appointments, and also appointments to the Main Street Hartsville Advisory Board. Do I have
So moved.
a motion, I have a motion, and a second, any discussion on that? All those in favor of entering executive session, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Ladies and gentlemen, we now stand in executive session.